Daily Detroit is brought to you in large part by our members at patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Get swag, access to our member-only Discord chat, and know that you're supporting local media. After all, local media cannot survive without local support. So join us at patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. It is Thursday, September 19th, 2024. I am Jer Stays. You know what I am not? I am not royalty. But you know who is royalty? The Prince of Brightmoor, none other than Norris Howard. How are you, sir?
I'm well, and I am here once again in Tech Town with you, Jer Stays, and we are here to deliver the news.
And, well, a dose of what's happening around town, because we've had some adventures lately.
We did go on an adventure.
We did. I felt like a little road trip, if you will, to Dearborn.
Wow, we went so far.
We went to like a mile from Devin's house.
Yeah,
but we didn't even bother to bring Devin. He's going to be mad at us later. And you know what would have really made him mad is if we had ate corn.
Yes, we should have.
You know what we should do? We should show up in front of his house with just ears
with just
of corn.
the corn, yeah.
And just eat corn in front of him.
Yeah, and don't clean up the kernels or nothing. Just leave
all
it
over
on his grass.
On his grass, on his sidewalk, and then leave. Eat corn. You know what?
All on his ring, he'll see us, all that.
You know what? That sounds like something that Tim Robinson would do, and he just had an interview actually in our magazine that I've yet to read, but I want to check it out.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Another native Detroiter.
Feels like a very absurdist thing to do.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that style of stuff, so we should just do it.
Yes. So to the thing that we did, the Ford Engineering Lab has been redone over there in Dearborn. There's a lot going on. There's that new design center that they're building. Over the next few years, 90% of Ford's spaces will be redone. This is not an ad. They just had an open house for us media types. We decided we go because, look, we love a dose of history. This building is historic. There is just so much that's tied to Metro Detroit that we saw, so many beautiful details. And you really saw, I think we'll start off this conversation. You know, this was the largest open office at the time of construction in the 1920s. The thing is that this, to me, is another salvo in like the talent attraction war and all the fun details and interesting things we're going to talk about. It's like, oh, you walk into this space, this is going to be a cool place to work. And I think Metro Detroit would be well served by more projects like these.
Yeah, this space is really interesting because what they actually did was they kept like the two wings on the sides almost original. They kept so many of the original details in the building, but in the middle is where the vast majority of their electrical drivetrain people will be working, right? That's the team that's going to be working.
Electric propulsion. I called it the Make Maki Go Faster.
Yeah, basically, so their electric propulsion team will be working out of this building. And the middle of it has been totally rehabbed with like these really crazy modular conference rooms, and it looks like something out of a Google office, just a little bit less colorful and a little bit more grown up, a little bit more refined.
Stately, I would almost say.
Stately is a good word for it. But what makes this important, in my opinion, what makes this cool, in my opinion, in the same vein as to what makes something like the train station cool, which is there is a concerted effort for people in the sort of automotive industry and in the business community here in Southeast Michigan to be doing more to get people to want to come here. And what I mean by that is specifically your electrical engineers, your mobile apps development people, your software people. They want them to come here. And it's hard to do that when you are competing against places like the Bay Area and Southern California, where they can just sell the culture. They can sell the lifestyle. They can sell the weather. But here, they're trying to sell the sort of history. They're trying to sell sense of place. They're trying to sell Detroit as an idea. And I think that can be very powerful because Apple and Google and all those places are very sort of separated from California at all, you know, as a whole, whereas like your Fords and your GMs are sort of intrinsically linked to the culture of the city. And I think they're trying to lean into that while attracting talent, and we'll see if it pays off for them with this new renovation, the new train station, and all of the new improvements they're making sort of in that outer drive rotunda corridor over there in Dearborn, where a lot of improvements are going in.
As a history nerd, I really enjoyed some of the spaces in this thing. To see the old paneling restored, to see the old offices of like Edsel Ford. I'm an Edsel Ford fanboy, as some listeners of the show might know, because he had a lot of vision when it came to design. He had a lot of vision when it came to art and the region. I often wonder, I may do an episode on this, and like how different Metro Detroit would have been, I believe, if Edsel had lived longer, because he died tragically, too young. To see all these things integrated so well, and you see the old pictures of how it used to be. This engineering lab used to be a very dark place. I remember visiting it years ago, and like they had suffered from like drop ceiling-itis, which is the worst. And to see all the skylights open, and to see where, these large prototypes were like wheeled across or carried across to do all this stuff. I thought it was so smart to set things up in a way that is that modularity, where it's like, okay, so this team needs this now, but if we need to make changes, we're not going to have to screw up the building. We're going to be able to do something with it. I loved all the little details. There were details in this one that I feel like in a number of Albert Kahn buildings, because this was Albert Kahn. We're actually recording this in an Albert Kahn.
We are.
But I feel like a number of the details over the years, due to whatever reasons, got lost. And these details, whether it was like metal around the columns or whatever, were kept, and it just added something where you're like, oh, that's why this guy was special.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was talking to one of the archivists while we were on the visit, and actually what she said was that in sort of a stroke of luck, they covered up so much stuff in order to get you to not see those elements that it ended up preserving so many of them. So they would put the drop ceilings in, or they would cover things with plaster, or they would do everything to sort of cover this sort of old 1920 style stuff in order to quote unquote modernize it in the 70s and the 80s. And eventually what it ended up doing is keeping all that stuff in perfect shape. So when they ripped off the plaster, ripped out the drop ceilings, and made all these improvements, you had all these really well-maintained, well-preserved original elements of this con building that normally would have been destroyed by, wear and tear, weathering, erosion, all the other stuff that happens to buildings through use. And, I just think that that's really cool. I think getting a view into what Ford is doing was interesting. And it led me to think that, the more we sort of do this, and me, Jerry, I'm more of a knock down the old to make way for the new type of person.
I get the emails from the angry preservationists. Yes, I'm well aware.
And listen, to the preservationists, I'll say this. Holla at Ford, because they seem to be the only ones really doing it with any sort of intention. And
so much intention, though. Really paying attention to the details in a way that I don't normally see. I often see things with a nod, and Ford's like, can we save it? Can we integrate it into the new thing?
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and do it, or we'll modernize it in a way that it's still useful, but keeps the spirit of what's happening.
Yeah, and I just really wish we would see more of that. There are plenty of buildings in Detroit that are gorgeous, that are beautiful, that could be used more. And, obviously we got a new giant skyscraper going in and potentially another skyscraper coming down. But I think the more we look at this kind of stuff, it's got to be with intention. As we know, Ford is going to be opening a new restaurant in the train station.
Actually,
now.
We need to mention that because Michigan Central, so that's the group that manages the train station, because the train station is not just a Ford joint. It's it's got all these different collaboration points. Yellow Light Coffee and Donuts, which I want to give a shout out because they were always very good to my dogs. They have their first spot that was in the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood. They are now going to be opening up a cafe in the retail arcade of Michigan Central, which people are just going to love. There's also going to be history tours now that are ticketed. The free tours will be over, but the ticketed tours and group experiences will be there. But to see that activity, even just going there, sitting, having coffee, wouldn't it be great just to like have a meeting in Michigan Central, like just having coffee? Like we'll just,
we'll
just pretend like we work there.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's sort of what I mean about intention and about doing things with an eye to how is this going to be used by people? How is this going to be a third space or a second space in terms of a workplace? How will that integrate into this community? I see Ford doing it, and obviously I'm sure there are others that are doing it, but as it stands right now, they are doing it at the largest scale currently. I want to see if anybody else takes up the mantle, because as much as we could build new, and I want us to build new,
If you want to check this out for yourself from the outside, it's actually located right next to the Henry Ford and Greenfield Village, like right in that area. So you drive down, what was it, Oakwood, and you can see the exterior of this thing. And if you have a friend that lives there or that works there, not lives there, I mean, they work hard, right? And by the way, awesome to meet some listeners just out on the floor, like not PR people, just people about. It was so cool.
Yeah,
I feel like we should get T-shirts like big at the Ford Engineering Lab or something.
We should. So shout out to the folks who came up to us and said they listened to the show. Apparently we got a lot of love amongst the Ford folks, so we're not just being effusive for no reason. We're trying to also suck up to the people that listen to us, so thank you.
Let's get into a little news. The United Auto Workers is gearing up for another potential showdown with an automaker, and that's going to be Stellantis. UAW President Shawn Fain has announced plans for a strike authorization vote against Stellantis, accusing the company of breaching contract commitments made after last year's 6-week strike. Federal labor charges were filed against Stellantis this week with the NLRB, that's the Relations Board. The union says the company refused to provide information about the company's plans and product commitments. The union claims that Stellantis has failed to honor agreements, including the reopening of an idled assembly plant in Illinois and plans to move production of the Dodge Durango from Detroit to Canada. This could either be a local strike against individual locations or a national action. Norris Howard, this just keeps on going. It feels like there's just like an uneasiness with Stellantis in general.
I told y'all about 3 weeks ago that we were going to see more collective action from the UAW and other unions across the country. And here we are. I mean, I think we are on the precipice of a strike if Stellantis doesn't change its stance. Today, Fain put out a statement that said, quote, "We are 100% within our rights to take a strike action if necessary, and we are prepared to take strike action to make Stellantis keep its promise." There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that from Shawn Fain. That is saying, if you do not reverse course, we will strike again.
Fain with the pain.
Fain with the pain. And that's the thing that we're seeing here is that, you know, Stellantis, there's been a lot of discord with that brand internally, externally.
There's been a lot of discord, as Gabrielle Coppola reported over at Bloomberg, between the dealers. And you got issues with the Jeep brand. We've mentioned this before on the show. It's a tough one. Where do they go next? Looking forward, I think there's a lot of valuable pieces there, but I don't know how long it stays a whole.
I don't either, and I think I'm really concerned for Stellantis at this point, and those who work for Stellantis. Listen, there's already shaky ground with Stellantis. GM and Ford have made very clear visions for where they want to go for the future. GM leaning whole hog into their ideas for electrification and what they want to do with their brand. Ford clearly is going into sort of this, I hate to say it, but a historical brand where they're rehabbing massive buildings and really planting their flag in the city of Detroit. And it just feels like Stellantis doesn't know what its identity is as an automaker anymore, and honestly as a business anymore. I think that this will go to a strike. I don't see Stellantis reversing course on this. If they do, I think that's wonderful. But based on what we've seen in the past, I think we could be in line for another strike.
I would love to hear what you all think. dailydetroit@gmail.com. Norris Howard, we've got some Shinola Hotel things to talk about.
All right.
It's because there has been some plaudits, well, a major plaudit given to them. They have been awarded a Michelin Key, meaning that it is a very special stay. The downtown Detroit hotel, which, you know, is out of that Shinola brand. It's a boutique spot. It's gotten a lot of attention, but also, I mean, let's be honest, it was good enough for Taylor Swift.
Here's the thing, for those who are unfamiliar with the Michelin Key, it is the hotel version of the Michelin star, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with in terms of restaurants.
And this is a separate program because the Michelin Keys are a bit wider, whereas the stars are only in certain cities. And currently, Detroit is not served by Michelin stars.
Right, currently. That doesn't mean it won't be in the future. But this is the only property in the city of Detroit to receive that recognition, and it's never happened before. So essentially what Shinola can say and hang its hat on is that it is the only property in the entirety of the state of Michigan and arguably the region that provides the level of design, service, and amenities that makes it a world-class property.
Well, and it's all wrapped together, right? So it's right next to what's the new Hudson's Tower. You've got the alley behind it, which is going to have a cool thing happening actually coming up the weekend of September 26th to 29th. They're going to be doing a floral festival.
Yeah.
There's activations there. There's Rebel Nell. There's Mr. Dips. There's San Morello in the bottom floor.
That's how you get in the evening bar.
So it's a complete experience where you can go to the Shinola, and then, heck, even just down the street, you've got Queen's Bar, you've got the Gucci store. Like, it's a complete experience there where if you stay at the Shinola, you can actually have like a whole time right there.
in
Mad
that
Cat
block.
Cat. I'm missing
Great
stuff,
man.
right? By the way, a listener went to the Lone Goat. Thank you, Devin O'Reilly, for the strong recommendation there. They love the Lone Goat. Everything for a night out is within a block of that place. You can stay there and have a whole good time. And I think that sets it apart from some of the other properties, even though it is kind of pricey.
Yeah, it's definitely pricey. I mean, we checked right before we cut the mics on, and they got, $600-700 a night. But the thing about it is that people are paying it, and you can charge what people pay.
That is, I think, the biggest reframe when it comes to the Detroit conversation that I hear that is kind of like shaking to people that, well, Detroit should be like $130 a night. And like, that's not. How do you, as somebody who's been around the city for a while, but also travel a lot, how do you feel about it and how do you see it?
I think for what the experience that the hotel brings and the experience that you can have downtown now, and especially what you're going to have in the next 2 to 3 years, I think they could charge what people will pay for it. I mean, listen, if you could say Taylor Swift stays here when she's in town, Beyonce stays here when she's in town, so-and-so stays here when they're in town, like that makes your stuff on a whole different level from so many of the other properties around. And I think also by being just right there on the strip and providing everything, like you said, they can charge what they want. But the thing is that for those of us who have been here for a long time, we got to reframe that about ourselves, and we got to really think differently about what is acceptable and what is the standard here. Because if we want to be on the same level as your Chicagos and your, Austins and all the other sort of big metropolitan areas in the country, yeah, they have Michelin Keyed hotels that cost $1,000 a night. Like, that's just what it is.
What do you say to somebody who maybe is intimidated by that?
Get over it. We got to get over it. Every city, and I've said this many times on the show, every city has rich people. Every city has middle class people. And unfortunately, every city has poor people as well. You have to have all three. You have to have everyone. You have to have diversity of economics as much as you have to have diversity of race, gender, and sexual orientation. Because what that provides is a difference of perspective, a difference of level of services, and a difference of tastes. There's some people who don't like expensive stuff like that, but there are some people who will never be caught dead at your local Best Western. So, you have to provide that for everyone. And so Shinola clearly is positioning itself as the luxury option in the city of Detroit, and they seem to be delivering on that.
Yeah. Well, as to that Parker's Alley in Bloom event with flower art, us at Daily Detroit love a good flower art.
We do love a good flower.
And
if you got allergies, be careful. Pop you a Zyrtec before you go out to the flower festival, but you should go out there. I'm going to check it out just because I like plants. I like aesthetics. By the way, we got to thank some folks for a plant we got in the studio.
We do. Some listeners, John and Andrew, sent us a ficus ruby for the studio in honor of studio dog Gabby. And let me tell you, that means the most to me. That's very, very kind. We're starting to amass some live plants in here, which I'm actually really excited about.
It's really
over
nice.
over the fake ones. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's a reminder that Gabby is still here.
There you go.
So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, John and Andrew, and I'll make sure to be in touch real soon. All right, Norris Howard, thank you so much. It's always good to catch up with you every time we can.
It's always good to be here. Y'all gonna see a lot more of me, so be careful.
There's some special news that we will be announcing next week.
Be careful.
Maybe. Teasing.
Tease.
The Prince. It's like the Royal Watch, like TMZ, following Norris.
Just does. Wait till the white smoke rises from the conclave, and then you'll see.
Pope Howard III. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Norris Howard.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Cheyenne Noserini for editing the show behind the scenes. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk tomorrow.